Welcome everyone to this week's video. I have a piece of wood that I've had here knocking around for maybe 3 or 4 years. I think it's cedar, not sure, but it is a burl. You see some of the burl eyes, but those little burly knots are kind of away from the part that I'll probably end up turning. Whacked her down pretty good, and I'm kind of oblong, but I was just trying to get most of the little burl knots off, so if I wanted to use them for another little project I could. I left this one in place. I think we'll see what that's going to look like. I didn't take this part down because I didn't have a really good flat spot that I felt like I could cut evenly with it and everything. So I'm going to figure out where I want to put my center at. We'll get her mounted between centers and we'll start figuring out about turning. One thing that's going to be a pain is that little out right there. I think this could be juniper. Is that a type of tree? I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I don't know. It doesn't smell quite like cedar. Anyway, I'll figure it out before the end of the video. Okay, so got quite a mess in the middle of it. I've got this ugly spot and I've got some crack and stuff going on here, but this is the big issue. And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get that out. I mean, I could go a little further. My concern is I don't know how far the stress cracks went. So now the decision is, what am I going to fill it with? Trying to decide if I turn it around and then continue to shape it before I fill it with something, partly because I haven't decided. Let's see what we got going on here. Whoa. Okay, we've got this. Ooh, I don't even find the end of this. Alright, that's gonna be sketch. Alright, so I got a big old knot hole, and I mean knot hole. It goes at an angle in the bowl, and it goes at least to there. So good chance that it could be all the way down to here. It doesn't go to this little dip in, but it may be part of the reason that stress crack is there, or it could be something to do with this mess over here. Really, the angle at which it's going leads kind of to that area. I just don't know. I don't know what we're dealing with, but it seems like a pretty good void. Now, right in the center of that pith, where that pith was. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little more shaping on the outside and decide what I want to do. Almost got this all the way flattened off, but I knew I was running into something major right in through here, and that's that knot. Now I just have to decide, after I shape the outside a little bit, then I may take a Forstner bit to it, flatten this the rest of the way off, shape it a little better, take a Forstner bit to it, drill it down a little bit to see what I'm dealing with this. See if I can open that up a little more and figure it out. I don't know what kind of wood this is. Kind of reminds me a little bit of oak. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I thought it was. Alright, let's take a look at her now. I don't know if you guys can see very well down in there. Pretty deep that goes, and that's a big old bark inclusion is what that is. My concern is if I keep eating away at it, I mean, I can tell that bark inclusion goes this way. So it probably is part of something over here. I just, because it chunked out a bunch more, opened up that hole. Yeah. And if I go to the very bottom of that bark inclusion, I'm all the way down into my foot. I don't want to push it too far that it's going to make this part too weak, or if it runs down into my tenon, I don't want, to have happen what happened last week, my bowl fly off the lathe. If you haven't seen that one, go ahead and check it out. Crazy business. Anyway, so I don't know how far off to the sides some of this goes. I'm tempted to turn some of this. Oh, do I trust it without some tailstock? Huh? got a long ways to go and a short time to get there. We're gonna fly right, huh? So, see what we got there. That I can see daylight through there. This is super thin right here. And I don't know how far that goes into this over here, but I would imagine that would open that up too. So, trouble. That is what that is. Alright, so I've got most of the bark cleaned out of there the best that I can. I used my Dremel with a little wire brush to knock back the bark that I could get to, and tried to clean up some of the other edges. Typically, I wouldn't take a piece off of the chuck once I put it on, for fear that I might not get it seated right. But since I'm putting epoxy in it, it's not worth, me accidentally getting epoxy in my chuck and ruining it. So I am going to take a spot and put a mark on the tenon and on the inside of the chuck to know that that's the chuck jaws. This is where it needs to go back. I am going to use the Fast Cure epoxy. I am going to add some shavings, and I've broken them up pretty fine. Typically, if you were going to do shavings in a bowl or something like that, you would try to leave them bigger so you have a better look. But with these, I have kind of run my fingers through them and tried to break them up. It is walnut and maple shavings that I have in this that I've saved. And so I'm going to mix the epoxy. I'm going to add some interference mica powder gold. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this isn't a big mistake. I am actually going to start out by pouring some into this cup here. Wonder if that's good enough. Okay, let us start by filling this crack first. Get out of here, bug. You bother me. I don't see any of those flakes going down in there. Or any of those. This could be a disaster. Could be a real big disaster. Try to shove some of those down in there. Probably gonna end up with just some epoxy in these places, but you never know. Sure don't want it running out though. All right, quit grabbing onto it. What's in you? What a mess. Okay, I am gonna throw some hot glue just around this down here. And hopefully it will hold what it needs to hold so it doesn't come running back out this way. Let me get some gloves back on. Or not, lady. Get your gloves on. Let's just leave this mess to be. Oh, good morning all. Well, I'm pretty sure this was a bad idea. At least for the outside. I think the inside might work itself out. We'll see. I just know it's going to be a bumpy ride because I got a heck of a mess of stuff to get rid of. Well, filled it in a little bit. That, which I figured some of the smaller stuff was going to be an issue, but, yeah, I'd worried about that crack with the way I had to have it set up. I just didn't have enough pushed into it up there. So what I'm going to do now is I am actually going to go ahead and put some CA glue in it. I think I'm going to use the black and the caramel or brown color. I shouldn't say caramel. Try to use both of those to see if I can somewhat create the same something. all these tiny little holes. This is why you don't do things you can't put in without a pressure pot, I think. I'm sure that they're not going to go down in there, and I'm just going to end up turning them away. Big old chunk out here. Okay, let's go on with some sanding sealer. Thirsty girl. She may take a couple coats of this. Move on to some sanding paste. Well, we made it through another one. Didn't throw this one off the lead like last week's. If you haven't seen that one, you better jump back and watch it because it's a doozy. You know, I'm not sure what kind of wood this is. I'm thinking maybe it's a red oak, but just not sure. It has some beautiful grain in it. Let me hold you up here so you can see. Everywhere there was a damage or a knot, it just has some interesting grain to it. Here especially is very interesting. The bottom has some really interesting grain to it too. And then here's the inside. So now let's talk about the epoxy with the shavings. I chased away, trying to chase away little tiny pits where the epoxy had air bubbles, I'm sure, and where it wasn't, the shavings and everything wasn't settled down good around it. I believe it's because I used the Fast Cure. If I had just some regular epoxy, just your normal, that's what I would have needed to use. Deep pour wasn't necessary because I wasn't using a lot of epoxy. It just would have taken way too long, and that's the only other epoxy I have at the moment. So I put a lot of CA glue in it, and as you guys could see, and then I did that probably 3 more times, and finally every time I would sand it away, I got to where I stopped using the tool to try to cut it back. I would, even whenever I was sanding away, I was opening up another tiny little hole. So it does have some little tiny little holes throughout it, but you can't even hardly, you don't feel them because I sanded a lot. And this is just how this piece is going to be. Using the 2 different color of shavings kind of made me think, let me bring it back up here. I don't know if you guys could see very good. It does a little bit remind me of stone or something. Like I said, the little tiny pits kind of bother me. Now, I am not a big fan of using shavings in epoxy, and I hadn't done it before because I'd seen other people do it and didn't really think it looked that great. But I can see where I would like this. I think if I ground it up just even a little bit more, because I used a little bit of coloring, I don't know. It just gives it an interesting design, I guess you would say. The only thing, like I said, that I don't care for is the tiny little pits in it, which, this little bowl has gone through a lot, so I guess it can have those little bitty holes. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and watching this video. It means the world to me that you're taking the time to watch my videos. I want to thank all my subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed, jump on in and subscribe. It's free. There's no expense. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you turn bowls using shavings and how they turned out, or pieces of wood like this that have all the issues, or if you just want to let me know something. Jump on in and leave me that comment. It will put you into my drawing whenever my next giveaway is. Don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. That helps my channel grow. And the thumbs up. The analytics like to see that stuff. If you're interested in any of the products, as far as the Let's Resin, Fast Cure, or the coloring, jump on down to my description and click the link and enter a discount code, and you can get 10% off. Again, thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't watched last week's video, jump on back and watch it because it's a doozy. This one, I'm so happy it stayed on the lathe, and I was concerned, but yeah. So we're going to put her in the picture box. Have a great day. We'll see you on the flip side.